We're going to give a shout out here to Rania Khalek because she's been doing the damn thing. Recently, Rania Khalek had two discussions back to back with two different people, but on a similar path, okay, about Israel and Gaza, but more importantly, where they stand as a voter come November. The first clip that I want to show you is Rania Khalek, and she is interviewing Alana Hadid. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe that this is Gigi and Bella Hadid's sister. And they are talking about where they stand politically for November. You know, is she going to support Kamala Harris? They talk about that in this discussion. So Alana Hadid, she is half Palestinian. I believe her father is Palestinian. As some of you may know, Bella Hadid originally, I think it was like, I want to say a month ago, she was removed from Adidas. She had a contract with Adidas and they removed her because she stood in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Then Adidas got so much pushback online. They had to come back and apologize for that. So Bella, Alana, and Gigi, they have been very vocal about this issue. In this particular discussion, they're talking about the Democratic Party and their involvement with the genocide in Gaza. And how does Alana feel about that as someone who is half Palestinian? I think you guys need to hear this because she has a message here for Kamala Harris.
About Kamala Harris as the Democratic candidate.
God, there's so much I want to say. And I guess we have the time. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in her as a candidate. I'm disappointed in, staying with the Biden administration as an alternative to Biden. I think, obviously that was like their best possible scenario, but for, so many people who are asking for change, it's not much of a change. And she is really towing the line. And she showed us that at the DNC with her really horrific speech that was just felt like a knife turning in, in uncommitted voters, in Palestinians, in, people for a ceasefire, in, anti-Zionists, in a huge contingency of the Democratic Party who are asking for better and saying, hey, let us support you. Let us support the Democratic Party. We want an alternative and something better. Give us something better. And we got a whole bunch of the same. So yeah, it was really, really disappointing to be from start to finish, and also disgusting, to be totally honest. It was like a really weird dystopian party during a genocide that we're funding and supplying weapons for. So, yeah.
So did everybody hear that? So that's Alana Hadid, who is speaking about, the disappointment that she had with Kamala Harris. And I've heard this from a number of people that thought that, well, maybe her position would be different when it comes to this particular issue than Joe Biden, only to find out, no, her position, is the same. And for people who do have question about that, all you have to do is look up their donors, and you can easily find this information on Open Secrets. That's all you have to do is look up their donors, and then you'll know where they stand on certain issues. You'll kind of figure that out on your own, how they are going to vote when it comes to particular issues if you just look at their donors. And there's another piece here I want to go into.
Yeah. And also, of course, the other thing too is this attempt to kind of differentiate her from the Biden administration, sort of, in the sense that are we really going to pretend this isn't the sitting vice president of the administration overseeing this genocide? She hasn't expressed disagreement with the policy that her boss has overseen. She's also come out and said she won't support an arms embargo. And then the general behavior, there was all this decadence and this almost celebrity worship at the DNC that was very surface level, just like a big performance and very empty on actual policy, except that we're just going to get more of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I want to get your reaction to, and I'm sure you saw some of these sort of at this point, I think what will go down in history as pretty iconic clips from the DNC. It wasn't just Kamala Harris or like, you know, people in power. It was also people who were attending the DNC as excited Democrats, and their reactions to some of, you know, the attendees trying to like bring attention to the genocide in Gaza. Here's one in particular that I'm certain you saw. This was DNC attendees reacting to activists, basically naming, like saying out the names, calling out the names of Palestinians who've been killed during this genocide. So I'm just going to play this clip. It's quite short. I'm sure most of the people who are watching have probably seen it.
The Palestinian children that you have! 13 years old! Sama Abu
Say it again. Say it again. Mock them again. Mock the children again. Do it again. Do it again.
18 years old! 18 years old! Yusuf Hassan!
I mean, it's just, oh, look at that guy.
He's such an asshole.
Yeah, I can't be bothered. I'm going to sit there and mock the names of dead Palestinians. And then, Alana, before I get your reaction to that, I also wanted to play this other clip that really disgusted me. Here is the reaction from some Democrats from North Carolina's delegation, I think.
This was bad.
There was a protest outside this house they were like having a party at, and the reaction was the following. I'm going to go ahead and play it. This woman who's responding to people who are upset about a genocide, literally twerking in their faces. Yeah. Like, it's so horrifying. And like, what is wrong with you? Anyways, yeah, what's your take on that?
I mean, it actually, now that I've kind of moved past the anger, the initial anger, it makes me incredibly emotional. And like, watching it again, I was like, trying not to cry. We are outside of the DNC saying, pay attention to us because your money and your support are funding the death of these people. And the reaction is to mock, to literally, I mean, if this doesn't explain what our political system is, putting your fingers in your ear and being like, la, 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 la. That's literally what American politics is responding to the genocide in Palestine. That is how, that couldn't like exemplify more what is going on with specifically this administration and the Democratic Party. Obviously, we are not expecting, I think a lot of people don't understand. They're like, well, why aren't you going at the Republicans and Trump? We're not expecting anything from them, and they're not in power right now.
So I hope everybody really heard what Alana just said there, that like they're not the ones that are in power right now. They're not a part of the current administration. And also they do not expect the Republican Party to handle this issue differently. They were hopeful that Kamala Harris, moving forward with this, the Democratic Party were willing to at least make some type of change. So can everyone just stop it with that talking point? Because it drives me crazy when I hear people say, oh, why aren't you protesting against the Republicans? They are not the administration that's in power right now. They're not the administration that is complicit with the genocide right now. If Donald Trump were in office right now, we'd be protesting against him too. So just think about that for a second. But I wanted you to hear that from Alana as well.
They aren't holding the presidential and vice presidential seat. So we are going at the people who are funding the genocide right now. So, and also the party that's supposed to represent us. That's the thing. Like, that's why everyone is so upset. Most of the people who are outside of these conventions are like longtime Democrats. And so we're saying to our own party, represent us. And this is the response. The response isn't like, let us listen to you. It's, you're not sitting at the table, so you're getting eaten. you know, that whole thing. So yeah, like we're just flabbergasted, and I'm honestly sickened. It's gross. It's horrific. And imagine doing that to people during the Holocaust. Imagine doing that to people during, you know, Vietnam, during all of these like things that you know were wrong now. Imagine walking past people trying to call attention to it and plugging your ears. So that's what they're doing. And, you know, history is not going to be kind.
And it's very disgusting, very disgusting. And I'll also say this because I want to bring in another part as well. I just think I wanted people to hear that from someone other than me, because people are like, oh, you say that all the time. I want you to hear it from someone who is, I mean, she's half Palestinian. I want you to hear that from them, not just me, all of the time. And I want to bring you into this clip here as well. This was at the very beginning, because this needs to be said. I want you to hear about those of us that are not willing to vote for the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, and those of us that are willing to vote third party. So listen to what Alana said here. This was at the very beginning of the video.
I couldn't bring myself to tick that box, because I know what it would mean for us, and whether or not that is, and I have to say this somewhere and somehow, that doesn't mean that I support Trump. When we say that we aren't voting for Kamala, that doesn't mean we're all going out and voting for Trump. Right. I'm going to vote third party, and period.
So I wanted you guys to hear that as well, because I get tired of saying that to people, and people say, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to support Trump? No, we're going to vote third party. Now, that was the first one from Rania Khalek. So she had two back to back. And the next one here is from one of the founders of Abandon Harris. And she's asking him this question. Again, I think that a lot of people ask. And he says something here that's very powerful that I want people to kind of take home with them. Listen to what he says about whether or not to vote for Kamala or Trump. Listen to this.
I want to ask you, because, you know, this is a question that I'm sure you get often, because this is pretty much the line of defense when it comes to how Democrats respond to the idea of how, you know, not voting for Kamala Harris, is how do you respond to the whole, well, you're basically getting Trump elected by doing this, which I think is a really insidious attack line, but nonetheless, it's one that we hear a lot. So how do you respond to that line of you are helping get Trump elected, and as a result, things are just going to turn out worse for Palestinians than they already are?
And the former president prevented our family and friends and colleagues from entering America, but the vice president killed them. Madam Vice President, you killed our people. You killed human beings. If it were the case that you committed some act that we could actually negotiate with, for example, you didn't pursue a specific policy that we have disagreements about on taxes, or on some policy question about the degree and relative importance of infrastructure in particular states, well, those are technicalities. We could differ. But when you come to the value of life, this is a message to all Americans. There is no compromise. There's things we should never compromise on, because otherwise we're all unsafe. We need to have a nation and a planet that's safe. And so what we say is, when you commit genocide, our only option is to send a clear signal that it's intolerable. And so the president, and now the former president that you refer to, at Abandon Biden and now Abandon Harris, we say 4 years under any Republican is incomparable to 1 day in Gaza. That we understand fully that this struggle continues, but that we must, in our first step, punish genocide here on November 5th, and then continue with our fellow Americans all across the planet and here in the United States in the struggle against Trump. We believe all these, the two candidates at the top of the ticket here, Mr. Trump, and the vice president, who really represent a single ticket, are despicable candidates. An oligopoly, a bargain, that when people say you'll bring the other, curious how they say that. They seem to describe the reality of a difference without a distinction when it comes to genocide. We will fight them all, and our first step is those who began the genocide for us to send a clear signal. And maybe I should share a personal...
We'll stop it there because I do see Jamal Green is ready to come in. But I just wanted to tell you guys, this is the problem with having a big tent, right? Sometimes it's good to have a big tent. Sometimes it's not good to have a big tent. And when you look at something like genocide, for example, the fact that the majority people in the tent, or let's say the people who control the tent, are not willing to even bend, or they're not even demanding you to move mountains. They're demanding the bare minimum. And the fact that the people who control the tent are not willing to bend in order to give Palestinian people some form of self-determination, to stop killing these people, to stop occupying them, to stop oppressing them. This is the problem with the big tent. And I said it before, maybe people who feel a little bit like I do, those of us who are to the left of all of this mess, there needs to be a party. You can't do this through the Democratic Party. You just cannot. I don't know how many experiments we need to try for people to realize that a party that's controlled by big money is not going to let those people in that big tent really have a voice unless they go along with Democrat leadership. So people that are anti-imperialists, people who are anti-war, people who support Medicare for all, people who support a lot of those progressive or socialist parties, there needs to be a place for them, because that place is not the Democratic Party. And that doesn't mean, and to what Alana said earlier, that doesn't mean you support the Republican Party. It means that neither one of these parties are working out for you based on your beliefs and your principles, and you have every right to vote against both of them. So shout out to Rania Khalek for doing the damn thing this weekend.